Good afternoon, dear students. So on 17th December 2020, for the students of MA semester 3rd who had opted the specialized paper population studies, almost I have completed this syllabus. But today, certain few topics which were left due to certain reason, I will touch those topics. And you just remember, dear students, when I was teaching you the theories of population, I taught you about the Meadows limit to growth theory. And now only 3 views were left. And today I will deal with the first view which was left, that is Meadows beyond the limit theory. Earlier the same person told about the limit to growth theory. And today, for certain reason, I am ending this second paper by Meadows, Encke's and Simon's views of population theory. Okay, so what Meadows told about the beyond the limit theory, this is your topic for your knowledge also, for the relevancy of the topic, you have to think over that, and then you have to think then how population is linked with environmental issues. So students, let's move forward. Why beyond the limit to growth theory I am talking about? Just see the term grow or die. This goes the old economic maxim. But in 1972, a team of systems scientists and computer modelers challenged conventional wisdom with a groundbreaking study that warned that there were limits, especially environmental limits, to how big human civilization and its appetite for resources could get. So students, ये समझने वाली बात है कि जब लिमिट टू ग्रोथ की बात 72 में कह दिया गया था, उसके पहले विकास के लिए इतने डेस्परेट प्लानर्स थे, विकास के लोग थे कि कहते थे कि ग्रो और डाई, आपको विकास करना हो या आप मर जाएंगे. तो विकास को ओल्ड इकोनॉमिक मैक्सिम माना गया था. लेकिन इसी चीज को चुनौती 72 में मीडोज की टीम ने दिया था, जब उसने कहा था एक कंप्यूटर मॉडलिंग करके कि आने वाले समय में विशेषकर इन्वायरमेंट की एक लिमिट होगी और वो इन्वायरमेंट मनुष्य की सभ्यता के सारी भूख को शांत नहीं कर सकती है. दिस इज हाउ we are talking about the Meadows limit to growth and today beyond the limit theory. So students, beyond a certain point, they said, in effect, the maxim could very well be grow and die. That means आप अगर उससे अधिक विकास करेंगे तब अब आप मरेंगे. आप पैंडेमिक का असर देख रहे हैं, एक सिंपल सा रोग जिसके बारे में लोग जानते नहीं थे, कितना भयावह स्थिति हो गई. लेकिन अगर इन्वायरमेंटल का कोई इस तरह का खतरा आ जाएगा तो आप उससे सामना नहीं कर पाएंगे. सो यू हैव टू मेक योर माइंड फॉर दिस सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट थ्योरी. सो दिस इज हाउ आई हैव टू स्टार्ट. सो स्टूडेंट्स, दैट सेम टीम ऑफ रिसर्चर हैज जस्ट रिलीज्ड एन हिस्टोरिकल अपडेट टू द लिमिट टू ग्रोथ. And the new book was Beyond the Limits, Confronting Global Collapse, Envisioning a Sustainable Future. And this specific topic printed in your syllabus is Beyond the Limit, is actually a book by Meadows team. The whole title of the book is Beyond the Limit, Confronting Global Collapse, Envisioning a Sustainable Future. So this is actually a book which we have to take care of and think of the better future. The authors use updated computer models to present a comprehensive overview of what's happening to the major systems on planet Earth and to explore probable future from worst to best case scenarios. And students, the book is rigorously scientific yet very engaging, and it is especially well suited to educational settings. So you should read this book, and that is also a part of your syllabus. So let's start with the beyond the limit threat. Students, threats from population explosion and limits to finite resource is a real question. आप जानते हैं कि अर्थशास्त्र में हम लोग क्या पढ़ाते हैं कि संसाधन सीमित हैं और आवश्यकताएं असीमित हैं, और अगर मनुष्य बढ़ता जाएगा तो मनुष्य की आवश्यकताएं बढ़ती जाएंगी, और उस मनुष्य के बढ़ती हुई आवश्यकताओं को एक सीमित रिसोर्सेज पूरा नहीं कर सकते हैं, इसलिए देयर शुड बी नो पॉपुलेशन एक्सप्लोजन. सो दिस इज थ्रेट. एंड what is this limit? When Meadows etc. wrote of limits, they were referring to limits to the rates at which modern human lifestyles and associated consumption through capitalism and industrialization can use materials and energy, and limits to the rates at which wastage can be emitted without harm to people, the economy, on the earth's processes of absorption, regeneration and regulation. This is why the term limits was emerged through Meadows ideas. And then comes pollutant. Very carefully, students, you have to think of this pollutant. For example, gases emitted from your car into the air, tailings from the industrial plant released into soil, chemicals from a paper mill released into a lake or rivers. The sustainable rate of emission can be no greater than the rate at which that pollutant can be recycled, absorbed, or rendered harmless by the environment. So you have to take care of this pollutant, and then you have to think about the whether you are moving beyond the limit or whether you are for the protection of the environment. So student, the second one is important is sinks. Where does all pollution goes? To illustrate, lakes, forest, oceans are examples of sinks. For example, forest can absorb carbon, but how well they do this depends on how much carbon and how much forest there is. Because students, there are limits, and now we are moving beyond the limits. So students, sources are obvious. That means fish. So you have to think of these things also. जो आप पोल्यूशन करते जा रहे हैं, मनुष्य की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने के लिए प्रोटेक्शन करते जा रहे हैं, आप एक छोटी सी वस्तु बनाने के लिए जो अधिक से अधिक उसका वेस्टेज निकल रहा है, वो कहाँ जा रहा है, क्या उसकी कोई सीमा है कि नहीं, ये आपको सोचना होगा. सो वी मॉडल दिस यूजिंग साइंटिफिक मेथड्स. सो स्टूडेंट, थर्ड इंपॉर्टेंट इज कैरिंग कैपेसिटी. दिस टर्म इज वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट. This represents the maximum population of a particular species that a given habitat can support over a particular period of time. एक क्षमता होती है अर्थ की, एक क्षमता होती है इन्वायरमेंट की, एक व्यक्ति की भी क्षमता होती है. महात्मा गांधी ने बहुत अच्छी बात कही थी कि हम हर व्यक्ति के नीड को तो पूरा कर सकते हैं क्योंकि हमको इन्वायरमेंट ने सब कुछ दिया है, लेकिन हम हर व्यक्ति को ग्रीड को पूरा नहीं कर सकते हैं, उसके लालच को पूरा नहीं कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि उसके लिए एनवायरनमेंट के पास कमी हो जाएगी. इसलिए देयर इज कैरिंग कैपेसिटी. आप उस क्षमता से अधिक अगर उपयोग करोगे किसी भी चीज का, तो दैट विल बी मच इनटू अ कोलैप्स्ड. सो फर्स्ट इज पॉल्यूटेंट, सेकेंड इज सिंक, एंड थर्ड इज कैरिंग कैपेसिटी. दिस थ्री टर्मिनोलॉजी were used by the Meadows, and that was his view that actually we are moving beyond the limit. And then you have to talk about the renewable resources. Students, soil, water, forest, fish, the sustainable rate of use can be no greater than the rate of regeneration. If this is a renewable, but doesn't mean you explore maximum of this. No, better this is renewable, but thanks to the rate of regeneration, then still we are talking of this. Otherwise, if this were non-renewable, then thing will be go beyond the limit. For example, fish are harvested sustainably when they are caught at a rate that can be replaced by the remaining fish population. So you have to think about these all things. And then non-renewable resources, that means fossil fuel, high-grade mineral ore, fossil groundwater, the sustainable rate of use of which can be no greater than the rate at which a renewable resources used sustainably can be substituted for it. These all are non-renewable resources. अगर एक बार ये सब खत्म हो जाएगा तो दोबारा नहीं मिलेगा, और बढ़ती हुई जनसंख्या से ये खत्म होने की कगार पर आ गया था, इसलिए मीडोस ने बियॉन्ड द लिमिट थ्योरी की बात कही. Example, and oil deposits would arguably be used sustainably if part of the profits from it were systematically invested in solar collectors or in tree planting, so that when the oil is gone, an equivalent stream of renewable energy is still available. So students, we all have to think, and this is a flow diagram. You can see Meadows told you that the solar energy, global ecosystem, there is a planetary sources, there is a planetary sinks, and between this there is an economic subsystem which is population and capital. So this comes from solar energy to high grade energy to low grade energy and to actually heat losses. So what this tells? This tells that this is a materials and fossil fuels, non-renewables, and this comes to planetary sinks, and this is a wastage and pollution throughout the manufacturing process that comes into planetary sinks. So you have to think of this model, whether we have to move beyond the limit. When this will happen, then this planetary sink will be filled, and there will be problem of water pollution, air pollution, etc. So students, for example, see this example of distribution of world water. 97% of world water is ocean, and only 3% is fresh water. And among these 3%, only 1% is a easily accessible surface fresh water, and only among these 3%, only 20% is groundwater, and rest all 79% is ice caps and glaciers. So if you have to protect your surface water, you have to think of the optimum population. Otherwise, this distribution of world water will be diminished. So students, just I will move forward with this flow diagram again. When we are talking about these topics, then we are saying that this is a blame game, population versus consumption per capita. So don't blame each other. Think of a global village, think of each human persons, because as Isaac Asimov told, that democracy cannot survive overpopulation. If there will be overpopulation, that will be the not solution of any problem. So there should be no overpopulation, and within that overpopulation, democracy cannot survive. So you have to think of an optimum population, and that's why very quickly I will tell that in 2001 there was 6.134 million people, which are projected to 9.322 million people. That means through 2000 to 2050 there is a 52% average population growth is still. And within this, more developed region is -1, they will not grow, but less developed region will grow to 65%, and least developed regions will grow more than 171%. So this is the scenario of future projection of population, and that means in less developed and least developed, there will still development process will go on, and we have to think of the theory of beyond the limit. Okay, so students, one more example you can see. When we were primitive, we were using only 2000 per person calorie. Hunter gathering was 5000. Early agriculture was 12,000. Advanced agriculture was 20,000. Early industry was 60,000. Modern industrial was 1,30,000. And now when we have developed, you can see the society, modern industrial society in United States, we are using 2,60,000 kilocalories per person per day. The more we are moving from least developed to developed nations, the more we have to consume per person kilocalories. So this is how you have to understand the beyond the limit theory, and then you can see that CO2 emissions, USA is more polluter. The more developed countries is a more emissions polluter. And then you can see that this is a USA's absorption capacity, and this is actually USA had produced this CO2 emissions. This is India's absorption capacity. India still have to be pollute this. So India have to think over their sustainable growth model. That should be the alternative growth model for the nation. Okay, and again I am viewing one more example. One American is equivalent to 23 Indians. This is regarding inequality of atmosphere use. One American use more than 23 Indians. So that means this is a unequal measurement of pollution and development also. So Indian have to think whether we have to be an American or we have to be an Indian, proud Indian with a sustainable growth model. So students, that's why this model was there, and we are concluding by saying that human use of many essential resources and generations of many kinds of pollutants have already surpassed rates that are physically sustainable. Without significant reductions in material and energy flows, there will be in coming decades an uncontrolled decline in per capita food output, energy use and industrial production. And second, this decline is not inevitable. To avoid it, two changes are necessary. The first is a comprehensive revision of policies and practices that perpetuate growth in material consumption and in population. The second is the rapid drastic increase in the efficiency with which materials and energy are used. And last is a sustainable society is still technical and economically possible. It could be much more desirable than a society that tries to solve its problems by constant expansion. And the transition to a sustainable society requires a careful balance between long-term and short-term goals and an emphasis on sufficiency, equity and quality of life rather than on quality of output. It requires more than productivity and more than technology. It also requires mutually compassion and wisdom. So this is how I am concluding this topic. So you have to also see the Meadows beyond the limit theory for the sake of your syllabus and for the sake of your future research area. Thank you.